Looking for answers, Democrats and Republicans argue over the best ways to send aid to Americans, and the U.S. economy hit hard by the coronavirus epidemic. Unannounced trip, why Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made a surprise visit to Afghanistan. Delay of games, an update on the Tokyo Olympics, scheduled to begin in 4 months. And Urbi et Orbi, Pope Francis makes an announcement regarding a special blessing usually reserved for Christmas and Easter. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, March 23rd, 2020. Good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. I'm Owen Jensen. Tracy is off tonight. 1.5 billion people across the globe have all been asked to stay home to slow the spread of the coronavirus. The order affects 1/5 of the world's population. In America, medical workers call for more supplies. The Trump administration says it will start with hotspots that need it most.
As president, I want to thank you for the incredible job you're all doing. There's spirit in our country like never before.
President Trump delivers a video message to the U.S., repeating his optimism that we'll beat this pandemic. Still, he's concerned about the spread of the virus, tweeting, "This is why we need borders." He adds, "We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself. At the end of the 15-day period, we will make a decision as to which way we want to go." It's not clear how long the waiting period will last. Several states are shuttering businesses and telling residents to stay home. The pandemic keeps sending shock waves through Wall Street, which closed its floors to help stop the spread of the coronavirus. For now, trades can only be done electronically. The mayor of New York believes the crisis is going to keep getting worse. He's calling for more federal help.
I spoke to President Trump and Vice President Pence last night in detail, and I'm glad we had the conversation, and I appreciated the focus of the conversation. But what I want to see is the real material support for the people of my city, 8.6 million people who are right now in the crosshairs.
I know that this is a challenging time for all Americans. We're enduring a great national trial, and we will prove that we can meet the moment.
Other members of the president's coronavirus task force also have a message to share.
Healthcare workers, we hear you. We hear you, and we absolutely are prioritizing your health and safety.
Vice President Pence traveled again today to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. He held a video conference with governors from across the nation.
We're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that our states and your courageous local health officials have the support that you need to meet this moment.
The remarks come 2 days after the Vice President and Second Lady took a coronavirus test after a staff member of the VP's office tested positive. The results for Mike and Karen Pence, negative. Tensions are running high on Capitol Hill as work continues on the latest coronavirus response package. But both sides are pointing the finger at each other over the details in this latest multi-trillion-dollar bill. Correspondent Eric Rosales reports now from Capitol Hill. Eric.
Well, Owen, to say the exchanges between senators were heated is an understatement. Fireworks were definitely on display on the Senate floor. With 5 Republicans currently in quarantine, Democrats have the power to scuttle the bill. Republican leader Mitch McConnell is having a tough time holding on to the reins.
I've spent the last 3 or 4 days complimenting the Democrats for not being partisan in working with us.
The Senate Minority Leader criticizes.
So let me be clear. The upcoming procedural votes are essentially irrelevant. The negotiations continue no more than 30 feet away from the floor of the Senate in our offices.
But prevents any delay of that so-called irrelevant vote.
I object. I object.
The Democratic leader
This is unbelievable. Unbelievably, the Democratic leader objected to my even being able to speak this morning. Is that what we've come to?
It's an apparent break in bipartisanship after a weekend of negotiations. Republican Senator James Inhofe tells me the House Speaker is partially to blame.
Democrats and Republicans alike were in agreement until Nancy Pelosi came over sometime prior to 6 o'clock and blew up the whole thing.
When Speaker Pelosi and I said, let's have a 4 corners negotiation, it was Leader McConnell who resisted.
And I think what changed was Speaker Pelosi came to town and had to represent the radical left's view from her caucus.
Leader Mitch McConnell criticized Speaker Nancy Pelosi's role.
She's the Speaker of the House, not the Speaker of the Senate. We don't have one.
All leading to today's delay.
If you look at the increase of deaths every day, anything that delays this 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, we're talking about people contacting something that wouldn't otherwise do it.
Democrats I spoke with say that they want a Marshall Plan, which is more money for the medical system and medical supplies. Now, Republicans say that the current bill gives hospitals about $110 billion. Is that enough? Well, the debate continues. Meanwhile, Americans continue to wait. Owen?
Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting from Capitol Hill. Thank you very much, Eric. The husband of former Democratic presidential candidate Amy Klobuchar tests positive for COVID-19. The senator tweeted earlier today, quote, "My husband has coronavirus. I love him, and not being able to be by his side is one of the hardest things about this disease. So many Americans are going through this and much worse. I pray for him and you. And meanwhile, I will do all I can to get help to the American people." She also says that she and daughter Abigail are constantly texting him. Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden is getting criticism for being absent during the coronavirus pandemic, but now his campaign is promising he'll give regular updates.
President Trump and Mitch McConnell are trying to put a corporate bailout ahead of millions of families. You know, it's families. It's simply wrong. We should be focusing on families. The White House and the United States Senate Republicans.
The former vice president urged President Trump to use the full force of the government to fight the pandemic. He gave an online address from his home in Delaware earlier today. Biden implored the president to start acting like the wartime president that he claims to be. The 77-year-old also complimented the president for activating the National Guard. The coronavirus takes the life of a Franciscan friar and deacon brother John Sebastian Laird Hammond is the first reported death from the virus here in the nation's capital. Correspondent Mark Irons joins us now with more. Mark?
Owen, brother John Sebastian Laird Hammond was 59 years old. He was not living in the monastery when he contracted COVID-19. He moved out last year in preparation for a new assignment. He suffered from chronic leukemia for decades and died in a D.C. hospital Friday. One of his fellow brothers described shock upon learning the coronavirus took brother Laird Hammond's life.
And there were times when he would be hospitalized, and times we were sure he wasn't going to make it. But over all these years, he always came back. When he did not come back this time, that was just unbelievable, because we've had decades and decades of him being near the point of death, but always coming back.
Father Larry Dunham, the superior of the Franciscan Monastery of the Holy Land in D.C., told me St. Francis would be so proud of brother Laird Hammond because he lived the gospel exactly as St. Francis had asked his followers to do. He fought for the vulnerable and marginalized. And before his departure last year, brother Laird Hammond had been running the monastery's day-to-day operations as business manager for 14 years. Father Dunham there tells me this coronavirus crisis presents a great opportunity to return to daily prayer and support those suffering most from this pandemic. Owen.
All right, correspondent Mark Irons reporting for us tonight. Thank you very much, Mark. Well, the Archbishop of New Orleans says he's positive with COVID-19. Archbishop Gregory Amond released a statement saying he recently had very mild symptoms, which included only a fever. He has notified people he came in contact with, and he self-quarantined. In Syria, the government reported the first case of COVID-19. The healthcare system has been decimated there by nearly a decade of civil war. And there are fears tonight officials will impose a lockdown. Shops are closed in Domiz refugee camp. It's home to 28,000 people and was placed under lockdown, forcing many to lose their jobs. And in Iran, the capital is deserted as people celebrate the fourth day of Nowruz New Year holiday in lockdown. This time of year, Tehran usually busy with people traveling for family reunions. Officials are reporting another 127 deaths from COVID-19 today. Iran, one of the hardest hit countries with 25,000 cases. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made an unannounced visit, a surprise visit to Afghanistan today. He's trying to move forward a peace deal. Since the deal with the Taliban was signed, the peace process has stalled amid political turmoil there. The controversy? Afghan President Ashraf Ghani and his main rival, Abdullah, remain deadlocked over who was elected president just last year. The urgency of the visit highlighted by the fact the State Department has warned American citizens against all international travel due to COVID-19. In Japan, the Prime Minister is acknowledging this summer's Olympics may have to be postponed. This is the first time that Shinzo Abe has said the Olympics might be rescheduled. Over the weekend, both Canada and Australia announced they would not send teams to this summer's games. Officials are now considering moving the Olympics to next year. Well, schools and universities in Italy, hard-hit Italy, are shut down indefinitely, but students at the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas, known as the Angelicum in Rome, are making sure their schoolwork and learning can continue despite the challenges. Joining us now via Skype from Rome is Mary Stone, theology student at the Angelicum. Mary, welcome to the show. Great to see you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, I know you guys are having a very, very tough time in Italy. We hope the best for you. And of course, we're going to stand by your side and keep praying for you.
Thank you so much. It's appreciated.
Now let's get right to it. Those online classes, that's what students across the world are doing. What's it like there? How's that going?
Yeah, very quickly, your life goes virtual. So all the classes are online. The Angelicum got it up and running pretty quickly once the lockdown started. So I was very grateful for that because it's difficult with the technology, but it's going very well. The professors are doing a great job, and I'm so grateful that they're continuing our education that way.
Yeah, I've got kids. They're in high school, and one's in college, and I'm going to be honest with you. They're bored, right? They're at home. They want to study. They want to learn. The online thing is the only alternative right now, pretty much. You can't go to school. What are the advantages that you see to being online?
Actually, that's a good question because, I came here because I wanted to be in the room with other theology students discussing after the class. And it quickly changed from, having those after class discussions to now I'm alone. I'm in my apartment. But it gives you an opportunity to just kind of reflect and chew over what you learned. And so rather than, dashing off to something else, I sit here with the material I'm learning and I take a closer look at the textbooks. And it's a very reflective time.
Of course, one of the challenges, though, at least, this might be old school here, but I always felt like when you're in the classroom, you get that, you get that give and take between you and the professor. I like that, where you're right there. Do you miss that? Is that lacking?
Trust me, that is something I really miss because I love challenging the professors. I love arguments and discussion in class. But it's not that that's been eliminated completely. It's a little bit more difficult for everyone to participate. But, we take our turns. We're very patient. The professors are patient with us and we're patient with them. And we do have some times for questions and answers. But it is more lecture style.
What about the test taking, though, thing? I mean, you're on your honor pretty much, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work yet. We actually have not been given the rundown, but there's a lot more written work. The coursework has become a lot heavier, actually, because the teachers need to hold us accountable to know that we're here. We don't just turn on the video and then, get back in our bed or just, sit here and drink coffee and, not take notes. So there's more coursework. And yeah, I have a lot to fill my time inside.
Yeah, and if you're cheating, you're only cheating yourself, right? They used to say, but you're too smart to do that. So for students around the world right now, again, who are they're just frustrated, they want to learn, but they're stuck inside at home, or they're just it's a frustrating experience, no doubt about that. What advice would you have for students who will be taking online courses?
Yeah, really take this opportunity. I know it can be really frustrating. You do feel like you're on your own very much. I was homeschooled, so I know what it's like. So I feel like I've kind of been prepared for this time. But I just want to encourage students to hang in there. Just really take your time with the information and material and try to reach out to your professors if there's the possibility to do so, because I know at least my professors are willing to talk. We're all sitting inside, so we have a lot of free time on our hands. So try to make contact with other students and professors, but just give yourself time. It can be hard. Don't become impatient. Just sit with the material and, keep working away at it.
And I think you're absolutely right. Ask questions, dialogue with your professors and your other classmates, right?
Yes, and it takes more of an effort. You're not just there, physically, where it's just kind of easier. It does take more effort on our parts as students. So please, like, I really encourage students to try, give an extra effort, let the teachers know that you are engaged, because it's important and you'll get more out of it.
And once this quarantine is over, and it will get over, this will pass. We're gonna better days are on the way. I tell my kids, they are on the way. What's the first thing you're gonna do in Rome? You're in Rome right now. What's the first thing you're gonna do when that quarantine is over?
Yes, the first thing I'm going to do is head straight to St. Peter's and, give a Te Deum and Thanksgiving. I can't wait for this to be over. It's strange to see the streets of Rome empty. I came here to be in the city, but also, at the school, and that's changed. But I cannot wait to get back out in the streets and see St. Peter's once again.
All right. Well, Mary, you're smiling, you're cheerful, you're really a set of positive attitude for people out there. Keep up the great work, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Mary Stone, theology student at the Angelicum. Again, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Coming up, Pope Francis prays for families facing economic problems because of the COVID-19 outbreak, and analysis on how to survive the economic uncertainty.
Che Dio vuole nella preghiera è il coraggio.
Pope Francis says prayer requires faith, perseverance, and courage. At his daily Mass at the Vatican, the Holy Father tells the faithful not to pray simply out of habit. Instead, we should put our whole heart into it and trust in God's love. Pope Francis prayed today for families struggling financially because of the coronavirus pandemic. Well, another rough day on Wall Street, no doubt about that. Hard-earned money disappearing fast. With today's losses, the stock market has lost roughly a third of its value since its record last month, as more businesses shut down in hopes of slowing the spread of the coronavirus. Economists increasingly say a recession seems inevitable, and no one can say for sure how deep it will be or how long it will last if it happens. Investors are looking for both central banks and governments to do their parts to support the economy. Joining us now is George J. Marlin, chairman of the Philadelphia Trust Company, which provides investment management and financial planning services. He joins me now via Skype from New York City. George, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me tonight.
All right, we'll get right to it. Another bad day, just bad day, right? A lot of bleeding going on. No surprise. When does the free fall end, sir?
Well, sadly to say, there is absolutely no comparison here. There is no historical comparison because this is the first time this is a government-induced shutdown of the economy, resulting in what I believe is a recession now. So how far this can drop, I don't know, but let me just suggest the following. In the city of New York, where there are 9 million residents, so far, 465,000 people have been laid off from the hospitality business and 353,000 from the retail job business. That's over 800,000 jobs in a week in the city of New York, one city. Every restaurant, every business is closed in just about every state across the nation. So we're probably going to see unemployment jump up to 30% when the figures come out in a week or so. So it's unprecedented. It's worse than the Great Depression. We've never seen anything like it. But remember, the government has caused this by an economic shutdown.
2008 was a nightmare. Foreclosures, job losses, things can come back eventually. They did then. But these are two different animals, right? Two different situations. So are they even worth comparing?
Apples and oranges. Because last time there was a financial collapse that could be pointed to the markets and the banks. Again, this is induced by the government. That's why what they're diddling on in Washington. They have to put billions and billions of liquidity into the marketplace. They must fund the unemployment insurance funds throughout the nation. They're going to have to fund Medicaid funds for those people who are losing their health care right now. So it was government-induced. They have to do it. They're going to come up tens of billions to help those who need it most. They have to move fast, and they're not moving fast enough at this point in time, in my judgment.
They're still fighting on Capitol Hill, bickering over all the details. Does that surprise you? I mean, here we are on the precipice, and they're arguing over a lot of the details.
New York. I used to run the Port Authority in New York and New Jersey, so I know a little bit about New York politics. Chuck Schumer is playing his usual games in Washington, and he can't get it through his head that it's time for the games to stop. It's not going to be a perfect bill. Not everybody's going to get what they want. But, if you remember a week or so ago, Mrs. Pelosi was trying to sneak in abortion money into the emergency bills here. So I think they got to stop the games. I think Mitch McConnell has said it right time and again, but Democrats are going to play this game to the end. It's rather pathetic, but I think it's going to backfire on them.
We've got to turn this thing around fast. George J. Marlin, chairman of the Philadelphia Trust Company, thank you very much for your insights, sir.
Thank you.
Well, the former head of the U.S. Catholic Bishops' Conference passed away yesterday. Archbishop Daniel Pilarczyk died peacefully, according to the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, but it gave no other details. Pilarczyk became an Archbishop of Cincinnati in 1982, and when he retired in 2009, he was the longest-serving Archbishop. He was 85 years old. Up next, to fight the coronavirus, Pope Francis announces special prayers on Wednesday and Friday. We'll explain. Ties between the United States and China continue to get worse. Both countries are pointing fingers at each other over the coronavirus pandemic. Earlier today, China's foreign ministry blamed the U.S., saying the Trump administration wasted precious time. President Trump has accused the communist authorities in China of covering up the initial outbreak. Joining me now for more analysis is Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China and an expert in Asia policy. Gordon, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Owen.
Mr. Chang, is the relationship, get right to it here, is the relationship between the U.S. and China doomed? And I'm not overstating that. I mean, this is a massive tragedy on a scale unknown before. What is your opinion on that?
I wouldn't say doomed, but I do say that it is destined to get worse, or at least less friendly. And the reason is Beijing needs someone to blame right now. It is very concerned about what the Chinese people think about the Communist Party mishandling the coronavirus response. And so they blamed the United States. And they've been doing this not just recently, but going back to the end of January when President Trump imposed the travel restrictions and quarantines. We've seen a concerted campaign against Washington since the end of the first week of February. And that culminated on March 12th with that charge from a foreign ministry spokesman that the U.S. Army spread the virus to Wuhan, almost intimating germ warfare.
Is their propaganda winning right now, the Chinese propaganda?
It depends. In the United States, I don't think that it is, but around the world, it is resonating in certain places. Beijing's campaign has been relentless. There is a reservoir of anti-Americanism around the world, and also some countries like Chinese money, and so they'll accept whatever Beijing says. So we've got to be concerned that this message from Beijing, although it is disinformation, although it's grossly irresponsible, demonstrably false, nonetheless has adherents.
So that aside, all right, China is claiming tonight there are no new cases of the disease in Wuhan, and all new cases are coming from visitors. So what's to believe anymore? As I'm an American at home watching TV, and I'm thinking, who am I to believe here?
Yeah, well, certainly China's claims are not credible. Clearly the virus has subsided from where it was, for instance, in January and February. But nonetheless, there are reports about new infections in Wuhan, the epicenter of the disease. Also, people have been talking about Beijing as a few clusters there as well. It is just very difficult to believe that cases have gone to zero, or at least the non-imported cases have gone to zero. So, and this is not consistent with the modeling that we have seen, and it's just not consistent with our experience about coronaviruses. So, no, we can't believe what Beijing's been saying.
The doctor who initially reported this, he was essentially told to shut up, threatened. The Chinese people know this happened, so what's been the response there?
Well, the death of Dr. Li Wenlong, the doctor you referred to, one of the Wuhan 8, who in late December warned the people of Wuhan about this disease, his death on February 7th has ignited anger across China's social media platforms. People there have adopted Do You Hear the People Sing, which is that politically impactful song from Les Miserables, the same song that people in Hong Kong use to protest China. So Beijing knows it's in trouble, especially because people in China are talking about Chernobyl. This is China's Chernobyl, indicating perhaps the end of the Communist Party. So these narratives really upset Beijing.
You think this is something that could end communism in China as we know it?
It's possible, just as Chernobyl was a factor in undermining Soviet control. This is possible. We don't know when it might happen. I thought it would happen earlier than now. But the point is, a lot of people in China are demanding fundamental political reform, and you do have the elements in place for regime failure.
Well, it's unbelievable. You know, one cover-up, lies, whatever you want to call it, and the world is now in the state it's in. Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China, thanks for speaking with us tonight.
Thank you, Owen.
Well, Pope Francis announces 2 days of prayer this week to combat the coronavirus pandemic. It includes an event normally reserved for Christmas and Easter.
Che dice di sé, sono la luce del mondo.
At his Sunday address at the Vatican, the Holy Father said he will give an Urbi et Orbi, a blessing on Friday afternoon in honor of the global fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. The prayer normally is reserved for Christmas and Easter. Pope Francis also invited the faithful around the world to join him Wednesday at noon to pray the Our Father. And before we go, a reminder, with public masses canceled, you can always watch our daily masses right here on EWTN. They will lift your spirits, we promise. Masses broadcast each day, 8 a.m., noon, and 7 p.m. Eastern. EWTN is also airing the Pope's daily Mass as well as a novena from Our Lady of Lourdes. We are also offering Eucharistic adoration from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern on EWTN.com. So spread the word to your family and friends. We thank you very much for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Owen Jensen. We're back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night, be well, and God bless.